So welcome everyone to Austin Pardot User Group, very virtual. Michelle and I are the co-leaders, and you'll probably see Marcos later on. We're happy to welcome Cara to give us a great demo of B2B MA. I think a tool most of us want to know more than we do. I was saying earlier that I currently work at a place that has it. I've set it up. I don't know what to do with it after that. So I'm really excited to see, I think, Cara, you said you have some slides and then you have some walkthroughs. So I'm really excited to see what you have for us and be able to ask questions. So with that, go ahead, Cara, take it away.
Thanks, y'all. So I'll quickly introduce myself. And if anybody knows how to actually switch over your Trollbees or community and merge it, because for some reason it won't let me merge and like all my information is wrong anymore. So I'll just give like y'all a quick breakdown. So I'm Cara Clanton Pope. I just got married, and which is really, really hard for me to remember my new last name too. I'm so used to like saying Cara Clanton. Anyway, so I worked at Salesforce up until January of this year. I was a Pardot advocate, like old school. I don't know if anybody remembers, like old school advocates came in, and over the last few years, I was our B2B MA person. So I remember there was a point where I kind of nobody on the team would touch it. It was the scary thing that nobody wanted to do, and I was like, I'll read this guide. I don't know. And then kind of completely fell in love with it and has been my like passion project ever since. So I currently work at Circonte. I'm our CRM analytics program manager. So expanding the world. And I think that's what I want to show y'all today is there's so much more you can do than just what's out of the box from B2B MA, getting into that CRM analytics world. And so, yeah, so I'll give you like a quick agenda of what I want to cover. But again, this is for you all. I want any questions that come up, like stop me, ask questions. Nothing's off the table. I'll tell y'all truthfully and bluntly about anything and everything. So like feel free to ask. So what I want to do is kind of the main three things that I see whenever people are asking about analytics in general. First one is setup. I've broken it down to where we're going to like quickly show you how easy it is to set up. That tends to be the biggest hurdle, like transparently. Most people have issues with admin, like logins and things like that. But if we can break it down to quick 3 steps, you'll be surprised at how fast we can get this turned on. Then I want to just quickly show you what you get out of the box, why it's helpful, talking about our different data sets we get. I'll throw out some terminology, probably some really bad analogies along the way too as we're doing it. But we'll do what's coming out of the box with your dashboards, data sets. And then the part that I think for me really takes it to that next level was how do you then customize it, right? There are so many more things that you can do than just what's out of the box. And I just want to show you a few of those steps. We'll take a use case together, walk it through. And then, like I said, the rest of the time is for like open Q&A for, like I said, any questions we have. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And so I'm going to do, risky, but we're going to do an entire screen. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so I want to go back real quick because I think it's important for us to first talk about, before we get into installation, like, why does this matter? And again, this comes up so much. And I think one of the biggest things I hear is, well, I could do this in Sales Cloud. Like, what does it matter? I can build a Sales Cloud report. I get to have some of that information. Why does this matter? There's 2 things. Like I have bullet points, but I'll kind of tell you all truthfully the 2 things for me. It is the what versus the why. And that's like the thing I think you should keep thinking as you're going through with analytics. A report's going to tell me what? Hey, this opportunity is this X amount with this user as the owner. That's great, right? Super helpful information. We need really clean data. Totally makes sense. But why? What were the things that led to that opportunity? Hey, I got X amount new leads. What was it that led to those new leads, right? So those type of things, that what versus the why is why we really want to focus on how can analytics help us. Think trends over time and pulling these threads and moving quickly with looking at campaigns that maybe aren't working. How can we increase, or things that are going really, really well? How can I capitalize on that? When we get into like the demos of the dashboards, I'm going to give you all an example that any of my event marketers out here will, I think, empathize with around like pulling reports in general for an event, having all that in different places in Pardot can be really hard to navigate. And so being able to break that down in a place like analytics makes you very lean and, again, able to serve up those findings a little bit quicker. So with that being said, let's walk through installation together. Like I said, it's the biggest question I get. It tends to be the scariest one for everyone. And so it's, I kid you not, 3 simple steps. And so let's jump into this together. So you'll first notice that I am actually in my account engagement app. I'm going to throw Pardot probably here a lot. It's really hard for me to break that. I will do my best to stay on branding, but forgive me if I do say Pardot a lot. So when you are in your system, there's going to be 2 big things that we want to check out before even we start setting up. And this is more, y'all probably have this, you probably know it, but go ahead and pull it up so you're ready when you're actually going through the installation. So the first part is I'm going to come to my account engagement settings. The reason we're doing this is there's 2 parts. One, I'm going to need my ID for my account. So keep that in mind. We'll talk about business units where we set these up too, but just kind of note, make sure you have that number. Go ahead and copy it if you really want to, but just keep that in your mind. The other one we're going to look at is we're going to come down to our connectors and double check who your Salesforce connector is. The reason we do that is your integration, whether you've upgraded to V2 or not, that B2B integration user is going to be in your Salesforce instance automatically. So it's good to know like who is actually going to be that connector. You could still have somebody that you haven't transitioned over. It could be an actual user still as your connector user. So it's really just good to be super aware of all of that. So now that I've got that, we're going to go to our very first step. And the first step is always, always, always giving out license and permission sets. And really the biggest reason why is that's what gives us access to do everything. And you can probably hear this song and dance from Salesforce a lot, where to do access or get access to anything, you have to have the right license. You have to have the right permission set. I know for all my admins, that's, rule number 1. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to click to my gear icon. And this is where if you do need your Salesforce admin, it's good to have them there to kind of give access to these things. Once they've done this part, the rest is gravy. You can do the most other parts on your own. So I'm going to click to set up. Now we want to think about with our permission sets and license, we got to give it out to that integration user we just checked on first. Reason why, that is your visual key in between Pardot and Salesforce. It's always going to be that user. And so for analytics, which is in Salesforce, to seeing that data, we got to make sure we give out the right permission sets to that user. So pretty easy. All I'm going to do is click in user or type in user in my setup, come down to users. Then from here, make sure I click on that correct one. You'll see there's always a ton of integration users. Make sure we select the right one. And then you can do this a couple of different ways. I'm a big fan of just the links up top. I think it's easy to navigate, easy to do. So I'm going to say edit assignment. And then from there, I'm looking for B2B marketing analytics. Now, if you don't see that, don't panic. So 2 things. I'll kind of take a pause here to talk about if you are on Plus, Advanced, or Premium, you have access to this tool and you should see B2B marketing analytics. From my understanding, they've pretty much done a cleanup and rollout for this license and permission set to everyone. So you should see that if you had that addition. Now, there are some old terminology, some old licenses that if you do see that and you would see something that looks very similar to our, it's called view only analytics user, but it'll say like analytics user, analytics embedded is in there. I can't remember the right phrasing, but because it's so old, but it'll have like analytics and embedded essentially. If you have that, okay, you still can do your setup. You just have to create your permission sets. And so that's one of the things, like chat me. I'm happy to walk you through that offline if you really need to. But I just kind of want to call it out. Like a lot of people panic at that point. Don't worry. It is okay. We can still make it work. So once we have given out, so again, pretty simple. I checked this off and said, yep, good to go. Save. And then from here, I'm going to also come to my permission set. Permission set license is like your passport. This is giving you the permission to leave. Your permission set is like your visa. How much access do you have? How much ability do you have to go? Is it a vacation? Is it a work visa? Are you on a student visa? Right? All those have different, but you still have to have your passport to get there. Same idea. So here I'm going to go to permission set, click edit, and again, just pull over that B2B marketing analytics. Now, that's for the integration user. Don't forget to do the exact same thing for yourself. You can go ahead and give it out to everybody that needs it right off the bat. If you're not sure how many licenses you have, those actually are in company information. So you can click the company information and see it here. So for me, I have 6. I've used 5. I have 1 remaining. And so just something to keep in mind of who all you're giving those out to. And so go ahead, give them out. And then, or if you want to wait, you can like give out the license and then come back to permission set when everything is set up ready. Dealer's choice, whatever you want to do. So that is step 1, licenses and permission sets. Fairly easy. Then you want to make sure you actually turn on analytics. And the reason we do that first is because you can't turn on analytics unless you have the permission set to do so. So a lot of times we'll see errors that people run into of like trying to do the analytics piece first without getting the permission set. And it's like an internal server error. So pretty much here, all we're going to do is say analytics and then say getting started. And then that will allow you to say enable CRM. And obviously I've already had mine, but something else I just want to call out. You'll notice we also have this B2B marketing analytics getting started, and it goes through everything we're talking through. I just kind of give you the mechanics first, but if you go back later on, you're like, dang, what did Cara say? You've got it all right here. So again, this is permission sets, enabling CRM analytics, and then we're going to launch it to actually set up the app. All right. So now we've completed step 1, we've completed step 2. Let's launch the app and we'll go ahead and set up B2B MA. So it's always going to be analytics. Now, one thing that's really cool is Analytics Studio is a tab that you can also have on your app, your Lightning app, but it's also going to be in a brand new browser. And it's just depending on what you're needing to do. Like day to day, use the tab. It's great because you can have access to your dashboards. But if you're creating things, Analytics Studio is the way to go. And obviously we're creating because we're setting things up. So you'll notice it launches in a new tab. And the way you can always tell, do you have any data sets? And I'll get to that in a second. But now pretend this is blank because when you first log in, you're not going to see anything. So what we're going to do is going to come straight over here to this create button. We're going to say create, then you're going to say app. So I'll give my first of many bad analogies right here. So what we're getting ready to do is download an app template. So Analytics Studio, CRMA, whatever we're calling it this week, is very, very similar to like an iPhone operating system, right? Or Android, if you do Android too. If you had the wherewithal and the time, you could go build your own app, right? It's very time consuming. And if you want to play Angry Birds, you just want to play Angry Birds. Download it so you can play it. Kind of the same idea here. Could I, through APIs or CSV upload, pull Pardot data in there, create my own data sets, then go through and create my own dashboards? Yeah, technically I could, but the app already has all that pre-built for me and all I have to do is set it up. So again, very similar to like downloading. Now, what I'll call out, depending on your edition, is you might have a ton of different apps in here too. So if you see a lot of different apps, you might have more licenses available that give you access to things like sales analytics. If you have like the CRM Plus, you might have Einstein Discovery. So there's a lot of great app templates that you can actually engage with, not just B2B MA. And I think that's, to me, really the power here is that that organizations and Salesforce have built out these pre-built items that you can go ahead and start downloading and engaging with once you set this up. You're not having to go through with a data scientist to talk about how do I data model all of these and get it correct. It's right there for you. So B2B MA, go ahead and click select, and then say continue. Hey, this looks good. Exactly what I want. Continue. And then you're going to say, it'll just ask you to create a new app. Now, obviously I have 2, but I'm just going to go ahead and say continue, and I won't actually push through. But so notice how earlier I said, hey, we got to make sure we have our account ID. If you're using business units, this is actually how you can have 2 different apps for each business unit. Now, keep in mind that you want to think about partitioning, who's going to be in there. Like, do you want certain people to be able to see that data or not? Just things to think through. Again, that's a whole other conversation, but just kind of note you can actually pull those both in there and have a combo dashboard as needed of like your full company overview. But I'm going to come back here and again, I'm going to go to account settings, make sure I grab that number. All right, pop it in there. Then say looks good and next. Now, fun part. Right now, I have access to all of these different dashboards. When you enable or when you enable B2B marketing analytics, it gives you 5, potentially 6, depending on your edition. 3 of these dashboards are going to be what we call straight up Pardot dashboards. And I'll go into more detail about them, but your pipeline, engagement, and your marketing manager are all going to be Pardot data. But the other ones that you have access to are what we call like strategy dashboards. One being ABM. So you have your account-based marketing dashboard. And again, if you don't do ABM, that might not be a dashboard that you necessarily need. Now, I recommend go ahead and throw it out there because you can get some pretty good insights from it. But that's why it's not automatically downloaded because, again, it's not a strategy that everybody utilizes. Same thing with multi-touch attribution. Surprisingly, now I'm not supposed to have a favorite dashboard, but that absolutely is my favorite dashboard. If you're not using multi-touch attribution, talk to me because I'm going to convince you to use it. It's one of the best things I think, for a marketer to have in your tool belt. But again, if you're not using it, haven't enabled it, that's not going to show up. That's going to be grayed out. So just kind of note, you'll need that to turn that on to be able to actually give access to the system to say, hey, now I'm using it. Let's turn it on. Another fun one, prospect and activity data set. If you have not turned on engagement history dashboards, that won't show up. So you have to, there's an extra step here because that data has to be pulled from engagement history dashboards to power that prospect and activities data set. That's a great data set in my personal opinion, because that's going to show you, what did John Smith do? Did he engage with that form? Did he fill the form out? Did he click on that custom redirect, right? All these really powerful things, like for looking at individuals, you can actually see in that data set. So just takes the app to a next level. And then the last one being, for anybody that is using Einstein behavior scoring, you have access to that too. Again, that's for advanced and above. So most people are on, plus, but it just, again, it depends. But if you do have, or utilizing Einstein behavior scoring, absolutely can turn that on and then have that 6th dashboard. So with that, I'm going to say, all right, let's go to next. And then fiscal year. So there's going to be a lot of ability for you to set fiscal year on a date range when you're creating. And so what it'll do, just it'll use what you say. So it could be that, hey, your fiscal year starts in April, right? You can change that out. If English US isn't the right format, you can change that out as well. And then let's go to next. Last little bit, you just name it, and that's it. The app is done. It's running. Now, every once in a while, you will get an error that says, can't complete the app, can't see X, Y, and Z. All that's saying is basically, you'll see it calls out like contact in the error message. And all it's saying is that it can't see the field values that it's showing there. And 9 times out of 10, there's 3 different ones: lead source on the contact, Pardot score on the contact, and Pardot grade on the contact. I'm going to show you real quick how to resolve those because that's a big one. So if that comes up, we're going to hit setup here. I'm going to come to object manager. And why this is important is because it's not what it's actually a little different. It's not what we think it's going to be. So I'm going to come to my contact, fields and relationships, and I'm going to say, let's do score first. I'm going to hop into that account engagement score, and I'm going to say set field level security, because what I'm going to find is that the analytics cloud integration user, which is basically what B2B MA sets up. It's confusing, I know, because it's not our B2B integration user. Very confusing. It's actually just going to be your analytics cloud integration user. If it's not checked off, it can't see it, so it can't run the app. So like I said, you'll do it for each of those field values. Once that's done, then you're good to go. So you might need to call your admin back in for that. But once you're done, that is set up. So that was a lot. I want to pause there and see if there's any questions, because I threw a lot of information at y'all. But so again, real quick of our steps, just giving out those permission sets and licenses, right? Make sure we enable analytics so it can run, and then going through the app, downloading the actual app in Analytics Studio. Does that demystify a little bit for everybody? Feel like it's not so scary to set up?
I like it. It's much easier than what I tried to do.
Right?
Definitely. I appreciate the thoroughness. I love it.
Awesome. And again, it's one of those things, like, I think it's, what admin access do you have? Because again, if you don't have access to come in to set field level security or give out the permissions, it might be a lot of back and forth. So Monica, great question. Repeat what you said about setting it up for multiple business units. I love this. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my system. So right now, y'all can't laugh about my bad naming conventions here, but I have Cara's Chocolate Bar and Cara's Classic Cars. Alliteration just sounded fun. So in this one, I can switch between the two, and you'll notice how my ID switches, right? So this one, 508-663, but if I switch it back, it's that other number. Whenever I'm going through the app, how it asks which number unit, I just switch those out. Now, what I'll do to create my second one, I will literally go through the same process and just say new app and put in the new ID, and that's it. And all you'll have both of those business units apps running. Great question. So what do we get when we turn this on? So let's hop back here. And so there's a few things. So I'm going to hop into I believe this is the one that has the right data in it. Let's double check and make sure. Yes. Okay. So in the analytics world, they use the word data set a lot. So in my opinion, a data set is kind of like the source that we're pulling in from these different objects. Like in this case, really Pardot has created our own objects. And again, I'll give you my second of many bad analogies here. Like if we think that like Pardot's this really awesome candy store, right? In this candy store, I've got M&Ms, Reese's, Twizzlers, all this great stuff, but like it's all jumbled together. And I just want like a blue M&M. Well, I have to sift through and find it and like pull out and look. And like, it's a lot of work to get just like my blue M&M. But what data sets are really doing is parsing all of that out for me so it's easy to digest. So you'll notice when I come here and I click on data sets, I've got a whole list of all my different Pardot objects. And I want you to keep this in mind because I'm going to show you later how do you get your Salesforce objects in here too. So then you can go to town playing with different Salesforce objects. But if I want to look at, say, emails, right, I'm not going to go click on a Pardot landing page. That doesn't make sense. So as you've gotten into Pardot, you've gotten kind of familiar of where things are organized. It's really the same idea. So a data set is just like grabbing that. It's the source data grouped together. Then when you click on it, notice what happens. Now I've got what's called a lens. Now a lens is really just a fancy word for report, but it has twofold function. So it is allowing you to say, hey, I want to build out a report, but instead of having to then go back and pull in a visualization like you do in Sales Cloud, you actually can do it at the same time. You can configure your data to match the type of report visualization you want. And so like we'll go back to that blue M&M, thought process here. So in this case, on my landing page, I want to see my sum. So I want to see total clicks on my landing page, or maybe total submissions is probably better, right? Total submissions. So that's like, how many M&Ms I can pull out. I want to break it down by like my specific campaigns. Hey, now it's blue, but you see how fast I'm moving? And what's nice about this is I can even filter and say, I don't want to see this campaign, right? So maybe, because that's always a pain, like looking at, if there's like a test campaign that you do, even if you look at the prospect data set, removing people that have like, a different source campaign from like synced from Salesforce or whatever. You can play with it and have those different options. In this case, let's say I do not want charitable causes, and now it removes it, and now I've got a little bit more accurate. Then, and what I mean by twofold function is, again, it's just giving me the ability to apply those filters or apply those criteria that I'm asking, the questions I'm asking on my data, and visualize it. I can come out here in these charts and say, I'm so over a bar chart. Can we give something cooler, please? And I can say like, okay, gauge or whatever, right? You have just different options. I'm a big fan of origami for anybody doing funnel metrics. It's so pretty. Anyway, So like I said, you can come in here and just play with a lot of these different, say like, how pretty is that on a dashboard? So much better. So I think that's also that accuracy of visualization helps people come to conclusions quicker too when they see and understand that visually. I think that's a big piece of analytics as well. Um, so now that we've done that, really what we're going to hop into is like what dashboards you get out of the box. And actually, I did do the wrong one. Let's do this one. So there are again 5 different dashboards, 6. So start with the pipeline. Oh, and actually, Patty, this is a great question before I go into this. Like, how do you make sure all your data sets are in your app? That's the best part about downloading it. It'll pre-do that for you. So once you download the app, that's what comes with the app is all your data sets and all your dashboards. Sometimes lenses depending on the app, but they all come like the moment you go through that process and it says like app's been completed, they should all be in that app.
So for instance, I just, as I was walking through
Oh,
creating
cool.
a new app
Oh, I
while
love
you were
it.
doing all this,
That's
and
awesome.
it finished, but I don't have Pardot prospects in my data sets. I mean, that's a standard
Yeah.
data set. Is there, so I'm looking at I went into the jobs monitor and I'm seeing a bunch of failed.
Yes.
Do you think it's tied back to that not visible?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. There's probably something there. And that's, let's pop to that real quick. 'Cause I think looking and knowing about data manager is also good just to have in the background. And I'm really glad you called that out. So
sorry,
data
I didn't mean to derail you.
No. This is really important. So this is good. So data manager is basically how we construct our data. So what's happening is, again, so we can get our data sets, it is doing it for me. It's basically going in and saying like, hey, I want to pull that data. So, but you'll notice I have warnings. And so what I generally do is it can tell you what warnings there are, but I'm old school. I come down here to manage data flows because it actually gives me like the error when I look at it here. And then it'll actually tell me what it is that's causing the issue. My guess is like, I would double check permission sets just in case. That's always my first go-to is like just double check permission sets. But to your point, a lot of times like this one is because I don't have any data in my because it's a demo org in my behavior score. Like I don't have enough data. So there's nothing in data score. So it's going to keep warning, but I still have data. So yours, I would say you're spot on. There's probably something weird with
especially for something as simple as Pardot prospects, where
I agree.
Literally be every lead in the system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And there could also be like just weird. I've seen some like really weird stuff too. There's like a weird bug that doesn't like finish the app. So it could be a number of things. And I will be transparent. The warnings are not always the best and very clear. Like sometimes they're just numbers. So if that, like those little tricks don't help you get through, like don't hesitate to reach out to support. They're really great to kind of know, hey, how can I, make sure and take a screenshot of the warnings because that really helps them too. Really good call out, Patty. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's a really good one. So the reason that we're looking at our different dashboards and why I want to call it back to our data sets, because data sets are what power the dashboard. And this kind of like, once this clicked in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, I'm seeing the connection. Because like, again, what is this? Bad analogy number 3. If we think of our dashboard as like this data story that we're trying to tell, right? In this data story, each one of these things, like that's a lens, that's a lens, that's a lens. So lenses are like the chapters in the story, but the data sets are the words. Like those are the things that I'm able to show details, like see like what are the criteria that I'm building out. So that is a support to build out those dashboards. I mean, and if you think about it, it's very similar to a Sales Cloud report, right? Like what fields did I pull on that Sales Cloud report? What objects are pulling in? It's very, very similar. We're just starting from that base, right? And I love this trick because you can kind of see if like you're getting in, you're like, I can't remember where that came from. It'll show you what all the different criteria are right here in the data set. And you can go do your own testing and dive into that specific data set as needed. So I'll give a quick overview of these. And then, like I said, I want to get to like the customization piece because I think that's really key. What I love about the pipeline is breaking down those silos. Like I know I'm preaching to the choir a little bit here of sales and marketing. Sometimes there is a disconnect. So being able to see like what are you doing as a marketer that is helping literally close deals, helping power the sales team. And so from here, we're looking at that same, very similar to our life cycle report in Pardot, but I think with a little bit more flexibility. And so you can, change these out if you wanted to now clone, but if you wanted to delete it and make your own, you absolutely can do that. Best thing to do though is like, again, edit and then say clone. Because you can't get them back once. That's the only thing I always tell people, like, you can mess around and play around because this is such a nice tool that like nobody's going to see anything because it's all going to stay in your private app until you move it out of your private app. So if I clone here, I can play with this all day long. I've got those safety nets. What I have a lot of people do is clone all the dashboards and let other people see those, but have like a bucket that only a few people can see as far as the app goes, which is a nice trick because you have a safety net and you can go back to it if ever need to reset. But if I wanted to, now this is going to like, I can't come in here and like save things. Like I can't say, okay, I want this to be checkout and update it. What I want to do is like delete it. And then I can actually come in here and play with my own filters. I can add my own criteria. I think it's nice to keep in mind that like your MQL, SQL, those are all predefined. Mainly just means assigned. A lot of times it might just be worth like, instead of saying MQL, change it to like assigned. Right. Something as simple like that. So it's a little bit more clear for who you're, depending on who your audience is. But then from there, something that is different than what happens in a Sales Cloud report is that faceting. So faceting is where like, if I click on a specific number, notice how the whole dashboard changes, right? If I clicked on this open one, it shows me how many people are still in that source campaign. And so I think being able to see, and again, moving quickly that visualization, that's really, really helpful to have those different facetings. Something else I think is really interesting with these, this is like having a microscope on your data. Like, especially when it comes like lead sources, you would be so surprised at how many customers I get in there. And it's like, all of them just say like prospecting. Like that tells me nothing, right? Where do they come from? Where should I be focused, right? And so by being able to call that out, that gives you that ability to go pinpoint where you might be having issues and capitalize on them, right? I also like these metrics here, being able to say at a quick glance if I'm diving in, like where are we at? And again, time frame. I don't have to keep it to the past 2 years. I can say last quarter or this quarter and start looking at, again, my demo org is not going to show anything, but I can look at and say like, where are we at? Are we actually to the point where we can hit the goals that the sales team has set or a company wide has set? You're able to like twist and see what you're doing and if it's making a difference and doing those retrospectives. I think that's one of the things I like a lot about this is being able to say, okay, I want to look at like my past quarter, not just this one, but like 2 quarters ago. All right, where are we at there? And so again, but I'm not having to like refilter or rechange things in a report. I'm just moving quickly with my filters. And again, the time you're getting back is a lot of the value there too. Engagement, I mentioned this earlier, but this is like, I think for your end marketers who are creating these great emails, who are like setting up your landing pages, being able to see all this by like, I can filter by tag, I can filter by campaign, but having them all in one area, it's just so nice that you don't have to go to pull so many separate reports to see this. And so again, like I said, one of my favorite things here, especially using tags. I used to have a love-hate relationship with tags. I think people either like underuse them or like overuse them a lot of the times. But I think this is a good use case for people who like don't necessarily know what to do with tags. Like this is a great use case to get in and filter and be able to see those different criteria. Now, our other dashboard here, that's like the last Pardot dashboard, if you will, is Marketing Manager. And truthfully, this is just a combo of the last 2. So this is like something I would check in every day, looking at if I'm not needing to like super deep dive retrospective. This just might be one I look at every day to see where I'm at. And again, I can something else when I clone. I think what's really nice about that is you can set predefined values. So you can actually go in there and say like, okay, I'm ready. I want to start this with like this fiscal year. So instead of having that 2 years, every time I log in, it defaults to 2 years. I can say, all right, I'm going to pick initial values and start. And that's also, you could do certain campaigns that way too. Like, hey, I want to filter by all these campaigns, set it. And that way you log in and you can have a different subset based off your breakdown too. And so I'll finish up, and then I'm going to quick pause for a couple of questions again with my other favorite two dashboards, which are I'll start with account-based marketing and I'll round out with, again, my personal favorite. Now, account-based marketing dashboard is basic. I mean, truthfully, it's like your pipeline dashboard, but viewing it through an account, right? So this is great. One of the things I really love is like my average engagement score. So seeing like based on those contacts with that account, like who is actually engaging, and you can see it by account engagement by engagement score by account, and who's popping out. There might be certain accounts, like again, if you're doing straight ABM strategy, there might be accounts that are really interested that you didn't realize. If we're thinking true ABM too, one of the things I always say is like looking at thresholds. So I might say like for my targeted accounts, maybe it is that 250 and above, but I can see here that express logistics is getting pretty close. So that might be one I want to put on my radar and do, send to my sales team, hey, can you double check this one? And what's nice about this is, again, I'm going to say express logistics. Now watch this. I'm going to come down to Dwayne, and I'm going to say, hey, Dwayne, I can open it and comment on his task there, or I can actually go to the account here, and we call these, just your actions. And I can actually go ahead and say, I want to either ask a question or chatter, I think is, a big one. You can log those there while you're actually working. It's like, hey, can you double check? Is this somebody we want to go after? And tagging the right people. And then that sends a snapshot to them in chatter, which again, you're moving so quickly. You're not having to like pop out. I'm hoping that one day there'll be a Slack integration of something like this, cross fingers. And then you also have this ability, which I think is really cool, down at the bottom to look at events. So again, as people are logging your events to the account level, this will show up. So mainly like if a sales rep is like logging a task, or logging an email, calling, you'll see all those there. So it's almost like your mini leaderboard. And so again, the breakdown of your different opportunities there as well to see like what's working, what's not. And what I like to do, because I don't think this is the full picture. I think the big thing that we're missing here is campaigns, right? Like, okay, cool, I'm building all these, but what are the campaigns that are getting these accounts across the line? Well, that's when we come to our multi-touch attribution. And that's where I start being able to say, okay, what are certain campaigns doing? Now, again, I don't have a ton of data, but what I can say is like, all right, I know that I want to look at Tech Labs. I want to see all the campaigns that Tech Labs has engaged with. And so that'll show me even last, all of these different ones. And I'm using these both to like tell the story and stuff that I might not be something that's not as easily visualized, I think, in a Sales Cloud report. I can look at specific contacts. I can look at a time frame. I can break down the actual campaign itself. And I think it's also nice that you can look at ROI investments based off your different campaigns. And again, being able to say, hey, this, even distribution campaign, but for a marketer, a lot of times, like we all know that first touch is like marketing 101, right? You're dead in the water if you don't have a good first touch. We all know that. But even distribution really has a place here. There are things that you are doing to get that person closer and closer to signing that deal. And if you're not being able to show the value that like, hey, we're contributing this opportunity, they might not want to support those different campaigns. So being able to showcase is like, hey, this is dollar values coming opportunity that our potential customers are engaging with. And y'all should get credit for that. And I think that's why I love multi-touch and campaign influence so much, is because it gives you that power with data to be able to share that. So again, those are my two favorite. So I'm going to pause, and then like I said, we'll round out. We'll do some fun customization. Laura, great question. How does the system gather the multi-touch attribution? Is it contacts and contact roles and campaign influence? Great question. And yes, all the above. So when you are looking at campaign influence, really what it's pulling in, and I'll come here. So is one, making sure that like it's turned on, right? I mean, a lot of times people don't have the additional campaign influence models. They just have the first one. So they'll just see like primary campaign, or they'll just see like Salesforce campaign, or sorry, Salesforce influence, which is not helpful. Like that's great, but it's very similar to first anyway. So, I mean, you have that with Pardot data. But what's happening is with the different models, so your first touch model is obviously like the first campaign that person engaged with in the time frame that they became a contact role on the opportunity. And the reason I want to like distinguish that is because this is great for upsell opportunities and cross-sell opportunities. The thing about Pardot is your source campaign stays your source campaign forever and ever, amen. You can't really tell, what influences different opportunities, right? But with First Touch, this like once it's all about the opportunity and the contact role. Once that's done, come back a year later and there's an upsell, bingo, another First Touch, and you can see what campaign they were on when that started happening. And so you can change a lot of those auto association settings here too, or like if you want a time frame of how long they have that ability, or if you want like certain campaigns to not include, or a big one that I tell people to do is maybe don't include connected. That's a good status, don't get me wrong. I love connected campaigns. I think it's one of the most brilliant things that Salesforce has ever done. But that does not always mean that should be part of a influence model, right? And again, dealer's choice, y'all decide. But that way I can sit here and say like, hey, I don't want a status of connected. Maybe I want them to like anybody that actually responds, right? So you have a lot of different options. All that to be said, once that's all logging, that's what shows up in your multi-touch attribution dashboard. Technically, campaign influence is a secondary object, which I think is kind of interesting. So you can kind of check it out here. If you type in campaign influence, or just influence, you can check that out there. Yeah, campaign influence. And it's the lynch between opportunities and campaigns. Who knew?
Another quick question to follow up.
Yeah.
Laura's. I was looking at ours and it looks exactly like yours. The setup with the campaign influence and additional campaign influence models being enabled. The primary is set as default and then locked for all the others and active for all the others. They're not showing up in my list under campaign attribution or multi-attribution model.
So did you, what edition of Pardot are you on? You probably are on Plus because you were able to do B2B MA. I would double check. Do you have Serum user as a permission set?
I don't know. Maybe not.
I would double check that. So Serum user, that's like, if you ever look at any documentation, you'll always feel like, make sure it's Serum user. It's
okay.
Campaign influence is a big reason for that. And if you don't see that, that's probably why. And a lot of times with campaign influence, like it won't show you any of these fields either. Like you see it, but you don't. That would be one way that I would double check.
Okay.
The other thing I discovered is you have to make sure you have permission to see campaigns so you can see campaign influence records. So if you can see campaigns, you're golden. Most marketing people are, but I was trying to share campaign influence records to one of our other analysts and I couldn't figure out why he couldn't see it. And then it made sense once I thought about it harder, but it took me a while. So when you showed the setup for campaign influence, now I'm deep in campaign influence right now. And I think, I did make some choices. My look back period is 120 days.
Sure.
Not, unlimited. And we're actually considering going further, going to 180 days to get 6 months. Our sales cycle is pretty short.
Okay.
What are I'm very intrigued by the customizable option for that. Is there any links you have for reading about the customizable influence and gotchas on that? And it's definitely out of scope of this session.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I would love to see some of those if you have them.
Yeah. Later. And Marcos, you gotta keep me honest. But I think Sarconte has some pretty cool customizable influence stuff too that I think we have some pretty good breakdowns on. Because to your point, so basically you can do your own customizable influence and it's just all based off Apex and API. And so you can kind of say like, how do you want to weight things? And so I think what's nice about this one, obviously it just kind of comes out of the box. You don't have to worry about that. And I think that is a lot of times why people don't go the full customizable route, but that's a great option.
I want to see examples. Honestly, if you have somebody who could walk through examples, that would be a great other session for us.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Marcus,
I think Laura is pretty equipped with kind of what's out of the box. I think sorry if I'm speaking for you too, Laura, but like
No.
you're pretty knowledgeable on this types of things. It's just I think when I don't know, for me, it's like when I see like podcasts about marketing, right? And like they start throwing all these acronyms that like if you're not like on the executive level or like really managerial level, you may not even know because you're dealing with like KPIs like open rates. And I know don't crucify me there, but like like those types of still significant, but not so much to the business type of KPIs. And so when we start hearing on this podcast about like U-shaped attribution, S-shaped attribution, all those things, like I feel there is a lack of resources, and I would even say even amongst the partners about like how to approach those types of conversations. And I feel like there's this really big gap on like what like a lot of people have access to. Yeah, what a lot of people have access to, and then where you see some of these thought leaders that have like either developed like their own solution or like are paying for a solution that's like a couple $100,000, dollars. And so like for the average marketer or maybe somebody who's in the startup, kind of role, like getting to that sweet spot, right? I don't think Salesforce really has anything out there to share. Ashley shared a couple of things. So I think this is kind of like some of the more standard stuff that we've seen and like initially start scratching at the surface, but I haven't seen like you know what I'm saying, like somebody highlighted and saying like this company did it like amazingly and like it's really working out for them and things like that.
I always go back to the why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I always go back to the why. Like what are you going to do with that information? What like with the U shape? What you doing with that U shape that you can't get out of these, right? Like
my specific one is really around not necessarily a shape, but like weighting things beyond the even touch. So even touch is great. In my 120-day period, how many campaigns do they have a responded status in? Everything gets equal weight. But I want to weight email clicks lower than form fills. So that's where like I think I need to dive into the customizable thing. And then that multi-touch report that you were showing, bringing us back to analytics, can show me much more data. On that. So honestly, I'm going to play with some of what you've talked about already and then go play in Sandbox with some other stuff to see if I can get to it. Because you can get campaign influence in Sandbox. So if I can fake up some campaign influence records, I can play with what they look like.
Laura, I'll also comment. We built our own custom, so we could probably have a sidebar about it ourselves. But this year we're probably about to reanalyze it because I know there have been many comments on wanting to update. So I could definitely along the way speak with you on that topic. Cara, to the point of the defaults that you showed that come in the system, or if you created your own.
Yeah.
Are all of those pulled into analytics there or only the defaults?
Great question. So all of them are going to be pulled in. So once you set basically on your, let me go back. What was my screen? Go back. Just kidding. I think it's this one. Whenever you say that they are active, once it's active and it starts having records associated with it, then they get pulled into that multi-touch attribution.
Cool. Great.
So, good question, Marcos. Like, okay, what would you advise? Would you ever like people just getting started? Honestly, set it up. Like, just set it and get your hands dirty. Like, it's that to me, I think is the biggest thing that scares people is like just turning it on, right? Because again, like, and we saw like poor Patty, there's all these like hoops to get it turned on and like errors and stuff. So I think like once you get through that hurdle, like turning it on, it's not supposed to be that hard. But I think, by getting it in there and like taking a use case, and I'm going to give you all like a homework assignment and a use case, because I think this is like how you can actually get in and learn. Like once you turn it on, then go try to build your own dashboard. Like literally write down 3 KPIs that you want and try to build it. And I'm going to give you one that I think will work and we'll do it together. But like go in and play. So you'll notice one thing with this, which is a little surprising to me, but I think it's, it's fine. And what's nice is we can pull in that data. You'll notice that there is no like straight Salesforce campaign and campaign members data, which is huge. Like we need that, right? Like that for marketers, like we need to be able to see that. So what you can do though is you can build out your own and then power that to a dashboard. And so this is like basically creating your own data set. So I'm going to hop back to data manager. Anytime you're creating your own data, you're going to do it in data manager. What I love about this is so much better than it used to be. And so I will say, like, it used to, you have to do like these purple nodes that were like a pain in the butt to like get all configured. So now what we're going to do is we're going to click on connections. So if you have your, like, again, data sync turned on, and that's one of those pieces that again comes set up default. If it's not turned on, you won't see this. That's a super easy fix. And I'll show you how to do that in a short little bit, but just kind of know it is default. It's always turned on now. That used to not be the case. But what we're going to do is we're going to say edit objects. And so what I want to do is I want to come look for my Salesforce objects. And the best part is like, this is how I get all that data. So I'm going to come in and say, I want to make sure I look for campaigns and campaign members. There's going to be two big objects that I want. And so is it going to make me type the whole thing out? There we go. All right. So I have campaign, but you'll notice I don't have campaign members. So I'm going to go ahead and check that off. And what it's going to do is show me all the different fields that are associated with that object. So it is really helpful if you have some insight to how Salesforce objects function. They have this theory that they throw out there called graining. And all graining means is like, what is attached to what? And I'll explain. So Salesforce, right, is a hierarchy system. Contacts attached to an account, right? So whenever I'm building out a model, I think of what is the lowest grade, meaning what's the lowest thing on the rung. And if I'm doing contacts and accounts, and I got to start with contacts because it's lower than accounts. If I start with accounts, I can't work backwards. And so that's why I want to make sure I pull in campaign members, because if I start with campaigns, my campaign members attached to the campaign, I can't go backwards. So now that I've done that, so I'm going to go like, okay, I want campaign ID, definitely want status, might want to know that they've responded, but things like last modified date are important. I want their name. Let's see, anything else there? Maybe type of the campaign member. We maybe not need that. We'll throw in there just in case. So then I've got those pulled up. If you don't see it here, you know how earlier we had to go double check and make sure that the Analytics Cloud integration user could see that field? If you don't see it, that's probably why. Not checked off. So click save. And now it's going to run a data sync. So here's what's really cool. The first time you do anything, you want to run a full data sync basically to catch it up. And then from then on, it's just an incremental data syncs. That always trips people up, but it's first time, just run a full sync. Then you can do incremental syncs then after. So once I've got it there, then we're going to do recipes. Now, recipes used to be like this big fancy thing. And all it is now is literally data modeling. Honestly, it feels very similar to flows if you do flows. So I'm going to say add input data. And all I'm doing is like more advanced, like report type, custom report types. So I'm going to come down and say, okay, I want to look at campaign members. So I'm going to type in campaign members, make sure it's that SFDC local one, because that's the data connection we just built out. And again, I can still pick and choose here when I want. Like maybe I don't care about responded. I can uncheck it if I wanted to. So we'll say next. And now it's lonely. So I say, okay, I want to make sure that I add in my next data set or my next data source. So that's where I'm going to say join. Now here's what's really cool. I can bucket if I want to. I can create my own fields. I can create formulas. I can filter things out here. And again, y'all, this doesn't touch any data in Salesforce. You're not going to break anything by getting in here and playing with it. So you can have a field day trying all these new things and nothing is going to break. But let's go back, delete this. I don't want to transform anything. All right. But I'm going to say join because I want to grab my campaign object. So join campaign. And it's nice because like, hey, they're related. You have a lookup field that's going to join them. I always get a lot of questions around lookups, and I'll go into that in a second. But I'm going to make sure that I only have 7 fields here, but I probably want things like I want to see number of contacts in that campaign. I mean, we always look at that, like leads, right? Won opportunities, like these are things that are going to be great on a dashboard that I might have elsewhere. Create a date, any of that can be really, really helpful. So then say next, and here, easy peasy, lookup joins. Now, this used to trip me up so much when like left join, right join, inner join, whatever it was. Think of it like a spreadsheet. And I was like, I don't get what's the point of this. But like if you're just meshing 2 spreadsheets together, like a left and right join, you just mush them together. That's all it is, right? But what we're doing is we want them to thread together. So that's why it's a lookup. We want them to actually have a key that matches between the two, just like a report type. That's why like you can build a contact and account report type because you can build it based off account ID. So in this case, I want to use campaign ID for both. And it defaults pretty good, except when you're using like the Pardot, the Pardot data sets, then it just kind of throws whatever out there. So play with that, but you can do the same thing we're doing now with Pardot data sets. So I'm going to say add here and then click apply. And now you don't have to do this. This is a little nitpicky thing, but for me, it just helps. So I want to say like joining campaign and campaign members. It just helps you so you know like what are we doing here. All right, so click apply and then you just say output, and this is what you're going to name your data set. And so you can just say campaign plus members. And then enter the API name. Again, it hates not having an underscore, so just do that real quick. Now, again, nobody's going to see this because it's in my private app. I can play all day long. Nobody can see it. It's just for me. But if I'm ready, pop it in my B2B MA app. Very, very easy, and it's there for me to use. Click apply, save and run. And I don't know why it does this, but it wants you to name it again. I was not the PM here. I can't, if it was mine, I would say no, don't do that. And then click save. I realize I'm spelling campaign wrong. Don't touch me too much. And then last little bit, whenever you do a recipe, because this is really easy to forget, for the very first time, make sure you just schedule it and just do it for every day. Because a lot of times it's like a one snapshot. But all you're going to do is like, hey, I just want to run it once a day. That is something important with these is don't forget that it's every 24 hours pulling in data because it's the dashboards move so fast. It grabs everything for every 24 hours. You can do a little bit more with the Salesforce. Just kind of keep in mind, like that's mainly Pardot data. You have a little bit more wiggle room with the Salesforce timing, but it's nice just keep them all in sync at the same time. Now, once that's done, and I know we're over time, so I'm trying to like go fast. When you go back to CRM Analytics, it'll now be here as a data set, and you can start building your own dashboard. And building a dashboard is so easy. You hit create, say dashboard, start with a blank one because that's so much fun, and drag and drop these over and start having a field day. Easy peasy. And so I'll pause. I want to see if there's any more questions. I'm trying to. What did I miss?
I'll read them for you. So
okay.
The next question, it was actually for me. So when you were building formulas, right, with your different variables or different fields and your output, does the for the API names, does it matter if you use caps or not? Like would
nope.
it? Okay.
Great question. No, it doesn't matter.
Okay. And then good. When you're manipulating the prospect and activity data sets, have you found a quick way to change the activity or asset name columns, which start as numbers, to words? I've been doing
the worst. Yes.
She's like, I've been doing column by column formulas, but maybe there's a quicker way.
It is so, yes, I'll show you a trick. It is the worst. So what you can do is you can actually pull up in a lens and it will say show fields panel. Actually, do I have a engagement? I think I do. Hold on. I think it's in this one. I don't think I've actually built a recipe with that one yet, but I'll kind of show you where to do it. So you'll go to fields, show field panel. And then when you go to your asset or activities, you can say edit the down arrow and say edit values. And so what I'll do is like pull this up and like match them together, and then you can just edit it and change it. So like I want this to be high, and then that'll show, and then once you save it, it pushes out to all that data set. And so then it's done. Now you can also do that, the transformation in the data set recipe too, but I just think this is easier. But you can do that there too. Oh my God, Patty, that's literally what I say about this all the time. Of like, it is basically Salesforce reports on steroids. And it's so fun. Like, I know this sounds like really dorky, and I'm probably like making myself out to be a big nerd here, but it is really fun to get in, like build a dashboard, and then it's really gratifying when you can build it out and have all these reports in one place, and just be really cool. So love that. I love that. You don't have the, wait, Mal said again, trying to see if I don't have the create lens button. Oh, there's actually such a good question. There's actually not a create lens button. To start a lens, you click on the data set. That's a little like not intuitive. But if you click on the data set, that pulls open the lens. Again, so not intuitive because everything else has a create button, but that should get you there.
And just to confirm, lenses are like filters. Like when you go on a report and you leave a filter on like state. Is that correct?
Kind of. Yeah. I mean, very, very similar. So like, I think one thing is good to keep in mind that this is easier to see on the pipeline. Every single one of these is technically a lens. So
Right.
This number widget is a lens. This donut chart widget is a lens. Technically, those are lenses too, but a lens, I always say, like, really it just has twofold function. It is let you have those criteria where you can filter, you can say, hey, I want this measure, I want this grouping, but then I can also have the visualization with it, which is really nice.
Gotcha.
Again, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was going to talk for like the whole time. You guys, I'm so sorry. I went like so much detail, but this was so fun, y'all. Seriously, thank you for letting me come, because this is, again, as you can tell, very, very nerdy, but I really enjoyed talking about this stuff.
We are thrilled that you are here going into so much detail and talking so much about it. Thank you for coming, because we are all like, our minds are blown seeing like the actual.
Love it.
I agree. It makes it so much less intimidating.
Yay! That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
So, Cara, if people have follow-up questions, where can they find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. You can email me. I'm caraclanton@serconte.com. But I'm pretty active, or try to be active, on LinkedIn. My Twitter is just me talking about TV shows. Like, I'm going to try to do better about that, but transparently, like, it's all TV shows.
Cara is also going to be on the road on a couple of the dreaming events
yeah.
near you.
Marcus keeping me honest.
Yeah, so if you guys are going to, I don't know, Connections or I don't know if you're going to Texas Dreaming, Cara, but some of the dreaming events you'll run into her. She'll be at World Tour DC next week.
Yeah,
and possibly New York? ?
We're crossing fingers. I really hope so. We'll see.
Yeah, so she'll be out there. But yeah, follow her on LinkedIn. Ask her questions. I think she's also in the Pardot Slack channel.
I am. I'm trying to slowly get active. I am. So You can ping me on there too.
Awesome.
Does anybody on the call now need a link to the Pardot Slack? I will drop it in. And yes, we are recording, and I'll try and drop in the links that were dropped in chat, and also drop in the link to the Pardot Slack too. But if anyone needs Pardot, let me know. I will find the link and drop it in for you.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out.
Yes,
everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
And we have an upcoming meeting. If you're joining this one, you'll probably get an email about the upcoming one. But we hope to see you there.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.